Why does this feel like a make or break moment for the iPad? Why do the stakes feel so high right now? Listen, I was not planning to do any new video on the iPad this week. I literally just put up my Apple Let Loose event coverage where we talked about the latest rumors for the next iPad Pro. And I thought, okay, with 1 week before the event, there's not gonna be any new leaks or rumors. And then the most major bombshell leak comes out from Mark Gurman saying that this next iPad Pro is not gonna have an M3 chip in it, and that Apple is going to skip right ahead to the M4 chip. And that's like major because we literally just got M3 MacBooks announced not that long ago. And for Apple to be, skipping 2 chip generations all the way to M4, that has to be for something major. And it really got my brain firing and thinking, why would Apple switch the iPad Pro from the M2 to the M4? It's not like people are clamoring for speed increases for this next iPad Pro. But then I thought Apple is prepared to make a big strategy change, a big shift for this next iPad Pro. They're going to position this as the most premium AI device that they offer. And this is a strategy that's probably brilliant. It's probably gonna sell a lot of iPads. So we're gonna talk about that in a second, about this AI play for the M4, but I kinda wanna take us back in history. We're gonna do a little history lesson here, don't worry, it won't be that long, to kind of see why we got here. Because in 2018, the iPad was so beloved. They just came out with that brand new 2018 iPad Pro update that had the new redesign, the same design we're using until this day. And it had so many great hardware things going for it. A lot of people at the time basically said, this is the best piece of hardware that Apple makes. And then to make everything, worse for the MacBooks, the iPad Pro chip at the time was faster than the chip that was inside the MacBook Air. Don't forget, that's when Apple was on the Intel chips, and the iPad Pro was embarrassing that MacBook Air at a cheaper price point than the MacBook. And a lot of people, rightfully at the time, looked at the MacBooks and looked at all the exciting updates that were coming to the iPad Pro and all the lackluster updates that were coming to the MacBook that really made the Mac feel neglected. And they thought, well, maybe Apple doesn't care that much about the Mac. Maybe they're not introducing exciting updates for the Mac because they're trying to move everyone over to the iPad. And that was kind of the thought at the time. But then you had a complete tonal shift happen in 2020 when Apple finally took those amazing chips in the iPad, and people were saying, why don't you put those chips in the Mac? Because they're faster than the Intel chips. And they finally do that. They come out with those new entry-level Macs. And all of a sudden, it's like all those complaints instantly vanished. And the MacBook actually starts to embarrass the iPad. You start looking at the MacBook and you're like, the battery life is better on this. It's so much faster. It has the professional apps I want to use. Why would I use an iPad? And we're now about 4 years later after that, shift to Apple Silicon. And a lot of people are starting to look at the iPad and they're questioning, does Apple still care about the iPad? Is the iPad something I should buy? Is there room in this world for a third device? And that's where we are right now. But that brings me back to my point. Apple needs to shift the iPad. They need to change strategy here. They need to make this a compelling product that people want to upgrade to, because one of the things about that 2018 iPad Pro also was it was so advanced at the time that people are still using them because it still works just fine for what you want to use an iPad to do. But here's where it comes in with this M4 chip. I think Apple is ready to show off their AI features, the AI features that have been rumored to be shown off at WWDC. I think that is instead going to be shown off on this iPad Pro because I believe these AI features are going to be hardware dependent. So with an on-device AI implementation, Apple has some advantages here. Number one, everything's running on device. So it's not gonna cause like a server to overload. It should be able to process your requests. And when you think about Apple implementing this feature, if they put it off to servers and it got like, too many people were using them because there's a ton of iPhones and iPads and Macs out there, well, that would cause a big problem because people wouldn't be getting their requests fulfilled and people would be like, this feature stinks. So that solves that problem. Number two, it's better for privacy. You're processing all your requests on device. You don't have to get off to a server, better for privacy. Number three, Apple makes the chips. They make the software. They can make the hardware and software in tandem to really kind of flesh out the right AI features for this device, make sure that these features run smoothly on device and quickly. And I think those are some big advantages. Then you think about it from a company advantage, not necessarily a consumer advantage, of what does Apple do to make money? And Apple, even though they're trying to build out these services, they are still very much a hardware company. They make the bulk of their money by selling hardware. So when you look at recent iPhone announcements or Mac announcements, and in particular, iPad announcements, what has been the big problem for a lot of these devices? People aren't upgrading as often as they used to because there's not a lot of new compelling features on these devices that would make people upgrade. We just talked about that 2018 iPad Pro, right? I brought up that history lesson for a reason. It's because that 2018 iPad Pro, for a lot of people, still runs great. And even after all these years later, they don't see a reason to upgrade to the current iPad Pro. But with this M4 chip, if Apple is putting, all these AI features that can run on this chip, and it can't run on an M2 iPad Pro, and it can't run on an M1 iPad Pro, or it can't run on the 2018 iPad Pro, what does that do? Well, if these AI features are compelling enough, and I guess that remains to be seen, basically Apple's rumored to be working on a ton of AI features, but I think, like the most notable, the ones we'll probably see first is something like a smarter Siri, an AI chatbot for Siri, maybe some generative fill features in their professional application, or maybe even something like Midjourney where they can kind of generate a photo for you, or maybe like auto photo or video enhancements, in certain apps, right? So maybe we'll see stuff like that. Maybe we'll see an API that developers can take advantage of to run AI requests on device, which would probably be pretty good for future features coming to the iPad. But basically, what we're looking at here is Apple tying these features to the chip hardware. And that's why I think M4 is so important. If it was just a general speed bump like we got with the M3 chip, it wouldn't be that exciting. You'd go, well, I don't need a faster iPad. My iPad's fast enough. But if Apple can actually make compelling AI features that consumers want to rush out and use, then all of a sudden, that solves a big problem for them. That solves the dilemma of people not upgrading, and it requires new hardware to not only use these early new AI features, but then when the M5 comes out and M6 come out, and it gets better and better at processing these AI requests faster and faster, it's just gonna keep driving hardware sales for the next 5 to the next 10 years, right? This, I feel like, is Apple's next strategy. A lot of these new features are going to be AI-based. That's basically where all the tech industry is moving right now. But Apple's unique advantage, Apple's unique play here, is that these features are going to be running on device. And that's a win-win for Apple. So they can ship more powerful features, they can ship more powerful chips, and for the consumers, they're gonna want those features, they're gonna rush out to buy these new products. So I feel like when you look at the iPad, Apple needs a shift here. They need to sell more iPads. iPad sales are kind of stagnant right now. And when you look at this AI play, even though I feel like obviously AI is going to come to iPhone and Mac, the iPad is a great device to showcase this because it currently is the one that is lagging in sales. And if they can repivot the iPad as kind of like this AI first device, and it's a great form factor for it, right? It's thin, it's light, it has a touch screen, you carry it with you anywhere, it has cellular connectivity. It makes for a great AI first device. And that, I feel like, is going to be Apple's play here. Whether or not what sort of AI features they ship with it, I don't want to speculate too much, but I really feel like if they're putting an M4 chip in it, it means that it's planning to run native AI features. And even though we thought they were going to show this off at WWDC, all these AI features, I feel like that's shifting. I feel like you're going to see all these features announced for the iPad, and they're going to be hardware dependent. But yeah, that's kind of like the major groundbreaking feature for the iPad. That's really the shift in strategy I see. But when you really look at all these kind of rumored features as a whole, it really just kind of pivots the iPad more as a premium device that's going to overtake the Mac for a little bit in hardware. That new Apple Pencil rumor is really exciting for me because apparently the rumor is that it's going to have haptic feedback, so you can kind of like pick brushes like in like a notes app or a drawing app. So let's say like you pick a pencil tip. When you go to write with the iPad, It'll provide haptic feedback that feels like a pencil. If you pick a pen, it'll feel more like a pen. If you pick a paintbrush, it'll feel more like the paintbrush. That kind of solves one of my biggest issues I've had with the iPad, where I've kind of always had this dream of using it as like a digital notebook to store all my notes, but every time I try and use it for that, when I write on the screen, it's just a little too slippery, the feedback isn't there, and I much prefer writing with a pen and paper. So if they implement that feature, that's like a personal request that I would just absolutely love. So that's exciting. But I think the more kind of like general approach here with this iPad Pro is just, they're basically giving us everything. They're giving us OLED displays, and apparently these are going to be like the best OLED panels in the whole production lineup right now. It's going to be like a dual layer OLED. It's going to have insane brightness levels. It's going to have, really good black levels like we expect with OLED. It's obviously going to have the 120 hertz refresh rate. It's just going to be like a really amazing display. It's going to push it past the MacBook again in terms of hardware displays. And then you look at the design, right? It's going to get thinner bezels all around it. It's going to look more futuristic. The screen sizes are going to be bumped up a little bit to 11.1 inches, to 13 inches on the 12.9 inch version. And even like the thinness, right? Apple is planning to make this like the thinnest iPad ever, one of the thinnest devices in their entire product history. And then you look at the keyboard rumors. Apparently Apple is rumored to be shipping like an aluminum metal keyboard with this. That's gonna make it look more premium, maybe make it look more like an iPad MacBook hybrid. Whether or not some Mac specific features come to this iPad, probably not, but who knows, right? Like just in general, they are shipping this more as a premium product, and that's expected to come with some price increases as well. And when you looked at the strategy initially and you thought, Apple moving the price up on the iPad Pro, something that's not selling in gangbusters already, probably not a smart idea. But if you shift it more as a premium AI device, a device that all of a sudden in hardware is going to overtake the MacBook again, that is exciting. That is a reason to upgrade. And initially, I was not that excited for this M3 iPad Pro, but now that it's going on M4, now that I'm piecing together that it might be an AI first device, now that I'm piecing together that it's just going to be this premium hardware experience, now I'm excited. Now it starts to make sense. Now I feel like Apple's strategy is pretty clear here. So let me know, do you agree with me that this new iPad Pro is going to be an AI first device? Do you agree with me that it is once again going to push past the hardware of the MacBook? As always, if you liked the video, make sure you give me a like. If you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And I guess we'll know pretty soon if I'm right about this. So I'll see you really soon in the next one.